We started this year, 2020, with a theme of Think Eternity. And we challenge each other to get to the place where we are, instead of just looking at the things of this earth as everything around us dictating our whole future, that we would see Jesus on his throne in heaven, and he created us in his image, that we would honor him through this life. He said, in this world, you're going to have trouble and there's going to be struggles. And we talked about what some of those may be. We kept saying our focus is heaven. And if we believe that our life was temporary and that we don't know for certain what's ahead of us, but if we trusted Jesus with everything, how that would change our focus. Little did we know what was going to be coming ahead of us. We got to March and everything shifted and changed with this pandemic that came upon us. When this pandemic hit, we were scared and we were fearful of our future and our health and economy and all those things. And it just took us a shaking and realizing, do we really believe in eternity or not? And a few months more passed, and we have these tragic deaths of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, and then George Flynn, and the world is shaken once again. As we see the things around us are scary and uncertain. The demonstrations happen, and the looting, and then the riots, and the destruction follows along, and we're thinking, what is going on? Where's the chaos? But one thing that was demonstrated is there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of confusion in this world. And when all we have is this world without eternity, well, it becomes very bleak. This whole thing has gone global, not only the pandemic, but also the outrage of racism and confusion that's there. It's bad to worse, and sometimes it can feel pretty hopeless. And so for the next couple of weeks, we're going to take a look at this theme of rising hope. How do we have a hope that is rising up amidst all the pain in this hurting world? Jesus had some strong words when he said this. He said, a new command I give you. No, let me back up. John 11:35. Let's start with that one first. It says, Jesus wept. When Jesus wept, it was at a time when he actually went to Bethany. It was a good friend of his was very ill, and they sent word and said, Jesus, your friend's going to die. And he gets there, and when he arrives in Bethany, his friend has already died. And it says he literally wept. That's the shortest verse in the Bible, but it's a very powerful verse because Jesus wept with the people. Now, in some ways, he knew the solution. He knew what was coming. He knew that at that moment in time, he was going to raise Jesus from the dead, so he could have walked up and said, oh, guys, don't worry about this. I've got this. But he did something else. He wept with the people. The next verse, verse 36, it says, then the Jews said, see how he loved them. Look at the truth of this. Jesus can walk in a situation, he goes, oh, guys, don't worry about this. Why are you fretting over it? I've got this. Eternity is coming. But he knows our pain. In the midst of our pain, Jesus feels the pain with us. He doesn't jump just to the solution, the end of it, but he says, you stop and pause. In the moment of the pain all around us, we as followers of Jesus need to do as he did. And we need to stop, and we need to feel the pain of those around us. Romans 12:15, it says, weep with those who weep. And now you may be a person that says, I'm done, I'm over, I moved on, but can we just pause a little bit? And today, can we just say there are people around us who are in great fear. And maybe you said, I'm so done with this COVID-19. I'm done with these masks. I'm done with this spacing. I'm so done with it. I'm ready to move on. But can you just pause a little bit and recognize there's some people that are grieving today because of this. There are some people today who are in great fear because of the risk that's in front of them because of this. And before we just nonchalantly push them aside, can we just pause and maybe weep with them and understand their pain and their fear and their grief? Next weekend, we are going to be opening our doors at the St. Charles campus. We've said we've been open all along, but our doors are going to open. We're inviting people to come and join us. And today, there's a few people in the room who are helping us get ready in preparation for it. But when we do that, we're going to do it with great caution because we want to respect the risk that's in front of us. And we're going to ask people to honor those around. And again, if you're one that the risk is not that great for you, you don't feel like it is, recognize it is for others. And so we're going to strongly encourage you to wear a mask and to respect the distancing because we want people to see Jesus and not come and be in a place of fear. But also we have the pain not only of COVID, but we have this pain of racism. That's huge. It's been there all along, but many people are now recognizing what it is. We talk about different races, but as believers, we know there's only one race. There's one human race. All of us are created in the image of God. But yet man divides up because of the color of skin. Whites are sad. Blacks can be very angry and very hurt. And we try to reach in and use some phrases, and one of the phrases that's very trendy right now is Black Lives Matter, but there's some great truth to that. Now, again, let me just say it clearly. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're not talking about the political organization behind it. I have some great issues with that organization. It doesn't take away this phrase that's talking about people. Rita sent me a video this week I've watched, I've read, I've tried to learn a lot, and it was Dr. Tony Evans. And he said, we get so upset about that statement. But, we have a strong statement as believers for the unborn children. And we'll take some strong measures and say unborn children matter. And we need to stand up for unborn children. Now, when I say unborn children matter, I'm not saying that pre-K doesn't matter or middle schoolers doesn't matter or young adults or seniors don't matter. I'm just pointing out that this group matters a lot. Unborn children matter to God. And the same is true when we say Black Lives Matter. I'm not saying anybody else is not important. We're just recognizing that this one group that's overlooked and put down so many times, I'm saying that they matter to God. Again, not a political organization. We're talking about people. We're caring for people who are hurting right now. Every police officer that I've spoken to in the past few weeks has readily said what happened in Minnesota was wrong and it was evil, and they are angry about it too. There are injustices. Blacks continue to suffer under this thing of racism, and sometimes as whites will say, we don't get it, we don't understand, and of course you don't get it, of course you don't understand because you're white. But instead of jumping to a solution of what they need to do to get over their fear, we need to stop and weep and hurt and feel the pain and understand. Whites are often afraid of blacks, and particularly black men, because maybe you don't know very many. And blacks are often afraid of the justice system around us because they've experienced some things that are bad, and so therefore they transfer that over against all police officers, and maybe they just don't know very many. We're upset, we're angry. Our police officers put their lives on the line almost every day, and they do it for people who they don't even know. Some people don't even like them, but it's there. I like what Andy Stanley said. He said, fear is real. Facts and data rarely replace fear. So we have all these stats. We can say the justice system as a whole is okay, and it really doesn't do it, but that doesn't replace your fear. We can say for the whites, you're ripped off more by whites than you are blacks, but that doesn't replace the fear. Fear is real. Think of it this way. If you're afraid of flying, I can tell you over and over, there's no reason for that fear. That's ridiculous. It's safer to get on an airplane than it is to get in your car and drive down Interstate 70. And stats say that's true. I can tell you that over and over, but it doesn't take away your fear when you get on the plane. The only way to get over that fear is a different experience than what you may be anticipating. Fear is real. Facts and data rarely replace the fear. Now in March, when the first weekend of the pandemic, when it started, I preached a sermon that says we need to move from fear to faith. The fear of the uncertain, the fear of what's ahead. And when I have this fear going on, I need to stop and say, God's in control. It's still there. I need to look at the fear in front of me. I can't just get rid of it, but I need to put that in balance with, is it me and the world, or is it me and God? And I need to be able to move from that and examine where I'm at. And now here we are in June, and we have another set of fear and concerns that's built upon us. And there's a lot of anger going around. And there's many that are listening today call themselves Christians. A lot of people call themselves Christians. The definition of a Christian is a person who follows the teachings of Jesus Christ. It's that a person who follows the teachings of Jesus. So whatever Jesus says, that's what I do. Sometimes when I'm watching and I'm hearing people and on the TV and different ones, and they say they're Christian, I'm actually quite shocked that they're a Christian because they don't look like they're following the teachings of Jesus at all. And the words that are coming in their mouth doesn't sound like Jesus speaking at all. But how about you? How about you? Are you following the teachings of Jesus in this day, right now, with all the fear and all the anger going on? See, we can say, I have trust in Jesus and I believe in Jesus, but if we put our Jesus up here, but our faith and our lifestyles differently, then we need to adjust some things. We move from faith, we also need to move your faith to love. We move our faith to love. When we say, I have faith in Jesus, then it should be demonstrated in how we love. So then it should be demonstrated in how we love, how we reach out. In the Old Testament, we had the 10 Commandments, and some of you can list them and start those, but these 10 Commandments are important. They're the law. But Jesus comes along, and he gives another one. In John 13:34, he says, a new command I give you. So this is not an opinion, it's not an option, it is a command. And Jesus says, I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must also love one another. And the love that we give is the same kind of love he gives us, in spite of my shortcomings, in spite of what I've done wrong. It's a love of grace. It's a love that keeps no record of wrongs. It's a love that continually pours out. That's the kind of love we're supposed to have towards one another. And then verse 36 or 35, it says, by this will all men know that you're my disciples if you love one another. So how do people tell in your life if you're a follower of Jesus? Well, it's how you love others. And so let's apply the situation. How are you doing with the people that you're having friction with? How are you doing with the people that you're just downright angry with? Now, there may be a good reason for your anger. There may be a good reason for the fear that you have. But how are you doing at loving them? Because that's how people are going to know you're a believer. Now, we can say, oh, I attend church, or I watch church, or yeah, I was baptized way back when. That doesn't mean you're a follower of Jesus. Because you're a follower of Jesus, you will love one another. Paul clarifies this a little bit more. In Galatians chapter 6, verse 2, he says we're to carry each other's burdens in this way. Then you'll fulfill the law of Christ, the law of Jesus, to love one another. How do we love each other? We carry one another's burdens. We see the burden that you have. You know, if you were to carry my burden that I carry with me for a week, you would understand me a whole lot more. And if I would carry your burden that you carry for a week, I will understand you more. And Paul lays it out and says, that's how we fulfill God's love. It's that we learn to carry. That means you have to understand what the other person's burdens are. You have to understand what's hard going on in their life. If whites would reach out and say, I need to understand your burden, and you said, let me carry that with you, then relationships are restored. In the same way, if a black would understand the burden that an officer carries, or the officer understands the burden of the people that he's watching over, and if they would build that trust, then we're able to love. And then we demonstrate the law of Christ. We're able to fear less. We're able to love more. Because we understand where the other person is. And I gotta say this, it's not enough to not be racist, because we look around and we see things, we go, I'm not racist. I don't accuse me of that, I'm not there, but can I ask you to go to another step? Not just not be racist, but to be anti-racist. You see, if I'm walking down the street and I see something horrible happening, I see someone abusing a child, just being mean, awful, horrible, brutal, verbally, physically. And if I just look at that and go, well, it's not my problem. I'm not a child abuser. And if I walk on, would you have a problem with that? We say, no, I need to step in. It's not enough to say, well, I'm not a bully. I'm not an abuser. When you step in and intervene, and I hope everyone listening would do that, you would just step in and say, don't do this. This is wrong. And we need to do the same thing in this area of racism. Not just step aside and say, not my problem. Say, what is the burden? And help me understand, help me learn so I can come in alongside of it. And whites and blacks, we build relationships. Then we're able to overcome the fear. We're able to carry those burdens. We're able to lift up. We're able to reach out to people that are different from us. A few weeks ago, I asked Benny Bryant, who's one of our elders, and he's African-American. He joined us on the platform, and he shared from his heart some concerns that he has. I hope you heard what he said. And I also want to share some thoughts of talking with a few different police officers. And I asked one of them to share their thoughts with me as well on paper. And so I'd like to read what this. It said, "It is no secret the public disdain for police officers has increased in recent years. Sometimes criticism is deserved, but most of the time it's not. With diminishing public opinion, Christian and non-believing officers alike do look to the church for support. We look to the church with hope." There's that word. So we turn to the church to find some hope. We hope that we'll be shown love and mercy and grace as we try our best to perform our duties each day. We are human, and humans make mistakes. We look to the church to treat us differently than the world is treating us. Officers lose hope, and so are their families. Children are being told by their parents to stop telling their dad what their daddy's job is for fear of retribution or bullying. And wives are becoming more fearful that their husband may not be coming home just because he wears a badge on his uniform. And I can also say that there are some husbands afraid their wives are not coming home because we have female officers as well. And he continues, he writes, "Please resist the hysteria and lies that all officers are out to get you. Ultimately, I hope you can please remember that we are individual sinners and we need Jesus just like you." So can we just pause and feel the pain of others and try to understand the burdens that they carry? Jesus had many friends. He had friends who were rich and poor. He had male friends and female friends. He had people from really bad backgrounds. He had educated, and he had people from the working class. He had religious leaders. He had tax collectors. He had zealots. He had people with all kinds of issues. People who were cast off from society. People who were condemned. People who were ostracized. He even had a friend who was a traitor. But Jesus loved them. And we can say, I just don't understand white people. I just don't understand black people. And that is on us. And we need to learn. And we need to educate ourselves. I had a conversation with a gentleman this week, an older gentleman. He says, I just don't know what to do. I just don't know how to respond. I want to help. And he's expressing the right thing. But we need to learn, and there's some incredible resources available. Many are just now being available, but are so good to understand injustice and understand pain. And when we stretch ourselves, when we become a student in understanding, we can make a difference. Again, Jesus' words, John 13:35, "By this will all men know that you're my disciples, if you love one another." Can we love the way Jesus did? That we would come in and we would weep with the people who are weeping. That we would carry their burdens. And that we would demonstrate God's love to them. Isaiah chapter 1, verse 17 kind of spells out how we can do it. It says this. Isaiah 1:17. There it is. "Learn to do what is right. Seek justice. Encourage the oppressed. Defend the cause of the fatherless and plead the case of the widows." Just very simple. Look at the truth that's around us. Look at the pain, and we're just going to step in and we're going to make a difference. What would somebody who doesn't look like you say about your love and how you do this? What would somebody say about you when can they tell by your love that you're a follower of Jesus? And true followers of Jesus look very different than those in this world right now. Jesus said this in Matthew chapter 5, verse 43. He said, "You have heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven." He said, the world gives you all these reasons why this is wrong and this is wrong, and why we should fight, and why we should be divided, and why we should scream out. And that pain is real. But Jesus said there's a better way. We need to pray for the people. We need to learn how to love and make a difference. Jesus says, follow me and love like me. We say we're Christians, we say we're followers of Jesus, then it should show up in our lives. We'll see men and women and daughters and sons and people of all ages more than we'll see a skin color or the uniform that they may be wearing. I think a good example to help us with this understanding how to rise up from the pain of this world to have hope is a story in Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1. It says, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord seated on a throne, high and exalted, and the train of his robe filled the temple. And it continues on, speaking about this incredible worship that's going on with all these angels around. And as many times we go straight to that, but we miss the first part of this verse. It says, in the year that King Uzziah died. Now, just a little bit of history. This was 740 BC. King Uzziah had become king when he was only 16 years old, and he had a reign of 54 years. That's a long time. Now, those who have been around for a while, that'd be like having the same president since Lyndon Johnson. And some of you don't even know who he is. He's one of our presidents. So all the way through, that long consistency, most of his reign was a really good time of prosperity and peace. And so it had been this long, long reign, and all of a sudden everything changed. And that day when a king died, it made everything change. It was a time that could be uproar. It could be a time of a vicious transition. It means a shifting, especially for most all their lives. They'd known one way of life. And now all of a sudden, everything changed in a moment's time. A little bit. In the year that King Uzziah died, we could say in the year of 2020, when potentially everything could go wrong and we're uncertain and what's going to happen, where's our economy, where's our future, what's my life going to be like, we don't know what's going to happen. What Isaiah did is he went to the temple. He went to a place of worship. He went to the temple. He went to a place of worship. When he went in, the king's throne was empty, but he saw Jesus on his throne. He was high and lifted up. It says his majesty was there. And the angels around, they're worshiping him. And in that moment when he sees the Lord, who he is, he had this response in verse 5. He says, woe to me, I cried. I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. My eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty. He said, God, I am a mess. We see Peter having the same response when he recognized Jesus was Messiah. When we truly see Jesus for who he is, all his power and all his majesty, we recognize my sinfulness and how shortcoming I am. And I wonder if we could think about the past month or two and my words, my attitude, my responses, the things I've said. I wonder if we should look at Jesus instead of the world around us justifying where we felt, saying, Jesus, you are holy. And you give me so much love. Maybe my response and yours should be that, woe is me. Verse 6 says that one of those angels went over to the altar and he took one of the coals off of it. Those altars represented a place of repentance and confession and forgiveness. So he took those coals. And verse 7, it says, with it he touched my mouth and said, see, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away and your sin is atoned for. And God gives grace to Isaiah. And he gives grace to us, no matter where we've been or what we've done, because that's the love of Jesus. And then verse 8, then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And I said, here am I, send me. So in the year that King Uzziah died, in the year of 2020, God's saying, who can I send? Will you respond, send me? There's another slide. It just says that we need to move from just this blank to hope. And I don't know what your blank is. I'm not giving you that. And I say this past week has been so hard. It's just been a real painful week with so many conversations and so much confusion and so much anger. And it's just been one of the hardest weeks I've had for a long time. And it's just been real hard. Mine, I don't know what I would put in there. Is it despair, discouraged, yes, knocked down? Maybe, I don't know what your spot is. What is it? In your 2020 right now, I need to move from this, anger, fear, whatever it is. I need to move from this to a place of rising hope. And how can I come from this to truly have hope? Can I look ahead and say, oh, the future is bright because Jesus is in control, and I believe he's going to use those all around me in this church and rise up Christians across this country. We have this revival in the land, and people just see Jesus for who he is, and the mess of all this world. Obviously, this world is broken. There's no hope in the world without Jesus. Imagine if believers all around would turn and say, Jesus, I see you on the throne, and woe is me. Would you forgive me? Would you use me to step out and make a difference? If we were to do that, would our hope rise? Because Jesus is in control. Dwight Moody said this, I'm only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And what I ought to do, by the grace of God, I will do. I'm asking you, will you see Jesus on his throne? Will you be honest before him? And take whatever you got and give it to him and say, Jesus, I need your hope, your strength. And would you use me to make a difference today and begin loving like Jesus loves? Let's pray. Father, we thank you for your gifts. And just the way Jesus, when he came to earth, how he walked among people and he touched them and he reached out to them and he gave his life because of love. Father, I pray that you would fill us with your love. As Isaiah said, woe is me. I'm a sinner. God, forgive me for my shortcomings, things that I've said or thought or done. Father, would you restore? Would you fill us with your spirit? And Father, I pray that you'd use each one of us, that you'd send us to this hurting world to make a difference, not to add more hurt or more confusion. Father, give us a hunger to see you and a hunger to understand and carry the burdens of others. Father, I pray that through this week, there'll be many lights that start shining a lot brighter, that look a lot more like Jesus, that you'd restore joy. Father, you'd help us as we reach out to others. In Jesus, I pray.